Oh, Raymond, another fine guest on the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast. We've got TSN NHL analyst. I say that before acknowledging the illustrious, the great career of Marc Methot as a stalwart NHL defenseman joining us here on the podcast. And by the way, as we talked about earlier, Ray, Meth is a must follow at Marc Methot 3. So just follow him automatically because you get the analysis, you get the humor, and on occasion you get the odd sparring, the jousting with the hockey fan that feels like he knows more than Marc. I mean, is this sport for you? Is it fun? You like engaging with the masses? Why do you do it?
I can't. Well, I know, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yes, Second, no problem.
I know Ray's had his bouts with people in the past. I've always aspired to get to that level, but I think joking aside, it's just a personality thing, right? Like I can't help it. And if someone has such an outlandish take and it's kind of personal, or you can tell there's a little bit of, contention in there, I jump all over it. And I know people enjoy watching it. So it's like watching a car crash, right? You just can't get your eyes off of it. And, to a fault, I like engaging with people, and sometimes it goes south.
So I'm guessing you sat at the back of the bus
on your team. I did, yeah, and I like to run my mouth too. Yeah,
it's a great observation point, isn't it? Back there, you can see what's going on, and if somebody does something a little goofy, you're jumping on it, right?
Yep, every time, and it was very much prevalent toward the end of my career when guys would start searching their names more frequently, like on Twitter, for example. After a game, you get a win. I jump all over them for that all the time because it's so toxic, and it's great when things are going and rolling very well, but then it becomes an addiction, and then people start searching their names after losses and they don't have a good game. And I would always tell them, like, dude, put the phone away. Just talk to the guys around you. It drove me nuts. Ray, you guys haven't experienced that. Like right now in the NHL, when you're on the bus after a big win, guys aren't having beers anymore. It's literally everyone's sitting down like this, just staring at their phones. It's bizarre.
Man, they're missing a lot. It was way more fun. Enjoy the win because the losses they're hard to take, right? Yeah. Like they're heavy. Now, I'm curious, Marc, when you came in, did you know right away what you had to be, or did you have to learn it? Like, did you go, okay, I'm going to be, I'm a big guy. I'm going to be a stay-at-home guy. I'm going to partner with all. Did you know that, or did you grow into that?
Well, I mean, playing in London, Dale Hunter prepped us for that. Like, he prepared us for the pro game. And Dregs, I still look back at some of those old clips, and you guys were on the panel at the time during the Memorial Cup in 2005. But I think for me, I had a pretty good indication of what I needed to be in junior. And then, of course, making the transition, especially back then, you're a big player. You have to play tough. You have to take the visor off your helmet. You have to fight once in a while. Like, all of that I struggled with a lot early on because there was so much emphasis on skating in my career growing up. I was more of a hybrid, maybe old school player, right? So I wasn't the tough guy. I didn't like to fight, but I liked to play physical. So early on, I think that's what honestly kind of held me back a little bit, making that jump to the NHL, and what kind of kept me buried in the American League. My game, I don't know that Columbus knew what they had just yet, right? Like, I'd play very well down there on the farm. I'd get called up, and I wasn't fighting guys. I was playing kind of physical, but I wasn't very confident. So if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, man, just drop the gloves once in a while. It doesn't hurt. Wrestle a guy to the ice, get it over with. At the same time, you shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't be advocating for fighting, but that was just the reality of the game back then. And, it's changed big time since.
Well, when you look at a young defenseman coming in now, there must be things you notice with various guys right away from your experience. Is it harder or easier to come into the NHL as I'll call it a stay-at-home, a shutdown guy now as opposed to then?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I don't know what the numbers are behind that. So I'm kind of talking out of my rear end here, and this is just a guess. But I would like to think that now you're probably getting more opportunity to jump right in because that physical aspect isn't the same to a degree. You're not having to wrestle with guys or fight. So experience isn't necessarily a big thing. Like Tyler Clevin, a youngster that just finished off the year, a couple games granted, with Ottawa, it was almost seamless. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like next year in a full season of 82 games. That's an entirely different discussion. And we talk about the wear and tear, and you see a lot of injuries in some of the younger players. But I think that initial impact, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of players graduate right away, and they're required a lot less grooming in the American League. So you could probably argue that point, but I'd like to think that if I was inserted into today's league, I probably would have spent a little bit less time in the American League.
Right. Now, you mentioned Tyler Kleven, who I think is, I know him from the World Juniors, and I was like, wow, this kid kind of knows how to play. He just sort of knows how to play. So he's at one level, Jake Sanderson's at another. What do you see? Who's a comparable for Jake? I mean, an amazing rookie season. He's going to get Rookie of the Year votes. Is he Jay Bouwmeester? Is he somebody like that, or is he somebody a little different for you?
I think Bouwmeester's a good. That never even crossed my mind. Beauty, by the way, he was my roommate at one of the World Championships. Almost never said a word at all. He was like a mute, but a really nice guy.
That would have been a perfect roommate.
And you guys know, right? When you're heading over there in Finland or any of those countries, like you're sleeping a mere 2 or 3 feet away from the other guy whom you know nothing about. It's bizarre. In any case, no, I think Sanderson's he's a bit of a hybrid, but I love his hockey sense. When you watch the highlight reels of this player, and I know a lot of people probably watching this aren't all that familiar with his game. I encourage you to pay attention to him. I think what surprised me most was his defensive ability. I did not think he'd be that mature in his own end. I mean, the one-on-one battles, under pressure too, like on a puck retrieval with a guy right on your back and able to make a nice little evasive move and then find the low center. Just terrific at that. Really good puck poise. I'm curious to see what his ceiling is going to look like as far as the offensive contributions are, but between him and then Tyler Kleven coming in now, and I think a lot of people were expecting him to probably play at least a year down in the American League. And now that narrative kind of changed a little bit after watching him play some NHL games. So they're looking really good back there. I still think they're very young. I still think they're a little undersized, especially when I'm looking at some of these other teams around the league, like Carolina, Boston, New York. You've got some big players back there that can move well, make a good first pass. So we'll see.
Well, I'll just really quickly, I'm doing the Jersey Rangers series, and, Jersey's not very big up front. Their defense is enormous.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're a bunch of giraffes back there. There's nowhere to go. They've got this young kid, Kevin Balls, in there. He's 6'6". He's 240 pounds. Where are you going?
No,
where are you going?
And that was a discussion point that I got into a big argument with over a lot of the Sens faithful, and I love the passion, but it was about Erik Brandstrom, right? And I like the player. And this isn't me taking a stance that you need big lumbering defensemen in all slots on the back end. It's more, what's your role? And if you have a young player who's 5'9" and Erik Brandstrom, my argument was, I don't know what his identity looks like if he's forced to play on the third pairing, playing maybe 10, 12 minutes a night. He's not going to have that same success that he had during the year playing 20 minutes when there were injuries. So, I just think now, and I'm always looking at trends. Obviously, I'm going to be biased a little bit, but I'm still in the belief you need big bodies back there that can move relatively well and can make a good first pass. And obviously you're going to have outliers, like players or these people. Some people were trying to make comparisons. Well, Adam Fox and Spurgeon and forget another Quinn Hughes. I'm like, these are Norris Trophy winners. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like, that makes sense in those top 4 slots. So anyway, I felt like I was spinning my wheels. So eventually I just had to put my phone down and walk away.
All right, we'll talk about Toronto and Tampa Bay in just a minute, because I know, Mark, that that's a series you're watching closely. Playoff officiating. You experienced it as a player. You're managing through it as an analyst. Ray is dealing with it. Ray and I had a brief conversation before you joined us here on the podcast, and it seems like it's the same discussion every single year. So is it just part of the playoff intensity, the atmosphere that comes along with round one, or is there an officiating concern from your perspective?
Well, I mean, I don't like that we're talking about it, right? Like the fact that it's getting that much traction online is a bit of a distraction from the actual game itself. It's a beautiful game. Everyone loves hockey here, and you don't want the focal point to be on the officiating. That's obvious. I think people need to understand that it's an incredibly difficult job, just to get that out of the way, right? Like it's arguably one of the fastest games in the world, and it's a different game from the regular season, right? It doesn't translate. It's not a seamless transition. I mean, you have a completely different product, once the postseason starts. So it's hard to gauge, to be consistent rather. And then every ref's different. And I know I'm not going to name names, and we talk about how hard it is to juggle as an analyst, because you don't want to be too hard on the officiating, and you certainly want to promote the league and the game. And at the same time, you have to call it when you see it. Like a good example was the other night when I was watching the Minnesota game. I talked about it a little bit on Twitter, where Foligno took a penalty. Now, you could argue that it was a run on that Hakanpää behind the net, but I don't like that it dictated the game. Like, Minnesota realistically should not have won that game, right? But it was a call, and they made the call, and then Foligno takes the penalty, and then Dallas scores. Sorry, Dallas should not have won that game. I apologize.
Right.
And so, for me, I'll keep it short. I don't like that it's inconsistent. I think you have to be hard on the infractions when it comes to the sticking penalties, the slashes, the holds. But I don't want to see the physicality get taken out. I think there are so many fantastic storylines that come from those stupid little scrums, seeing the emotion, seeing players take a healthy run at each other once in a while, as long as it's clean. So, that's where I stand there. I don't know how you fix it. You guys are far more versed in this area than I am, but I'd just like to see a little bit more consistency. I think people are just curious, like, so what's the standard now? What are we calling?
Yeah.
See, I think the only way they can, and I think they've taken some really good strides, just as I watch the games, is however you call the games for the most part in the regular season, you have to call them the same way. Yeah, understanding there's way more penalties in the playoffs because it's so desperate. There's like, guys are going to do anything. Yeah. If you're beat, you're going to take a penalty. You're not going to give up a scoring chance. And so I think the refs are kind of stuck. And like, no matter what they do, people are going to bitch about it anyway.
True.
And you get somebody going, well, I don't know what the standard is. Well, yeah, you do. You just got burned. Like, we've all been burned on a penalty, right? You're like, well, I didn't know the standard. And you're like, yeah, but you got his sweater in your hand.
So,
and you're like, oh.
And to that point, Ray, that's where I'm coming from. It's like, I understand that, like, like the obvious calls when you're beat on a rush or whatever the situation is, any sequence. I'm just coming from the physicality standpoint, like the odd run here and there, a nice clean hit. I think that's where I'd like them to put the whistles away a little bit, but that's obviously where I'm coming from, and that's how I played. But yeah, I agree. I agree with you though. Fans shouldn't be all that surprised because, again, it's desperate hockey. The emotions are running wild, and players just want to win that badly. So they're going to do everything they can in their power to do so. I think you explained it really well there.
I'd always wondered when I watched you play, and you and Erik Karlsson played so well together, and he's about as unpredictable a guy on the ice because he's got this immense talent. Yet you guys just fit. So is there pressure playing with him? Like, did you feel it as his partner? Because he's at a level that you better keep up in your own way, right? And I was always curious about that.
No. Well, it's funny because when we'd play, you nailed it right there. Talk about unpredictable. So, and that would translate into arguments all the time on the bench, right? So we'd be on the blue line and maybe under pressure with a high forward coming out and I have possession of the puck. He'd be pissed with me that I didn't move it to him. And I'd have to remind him all the time, I'm not Paul Coffey. Like, I don't have that vision that you have. And that's a challenge for a lot of skilled players. Like even with forwards, right? Where they don't always translate well into a management position or a coaching position because they see the game X amount of steps ahead of a lot of the other players. And Erik was no exception with that. For me, it was simple. I had to rely on my legs. That was an attribute that I had that worked well for me being a bigger guy. I moved around pretty well. So that would get me out of trouble a lot. And then, of course, you just have to come to terms with the fact that you're gonna bitch at each other on the bench. And sometimes I'd have to remind him. I'd be like, even on the ice, I'm like, Erik, just shut up. Like, don't do it right now. there's cameras all around, and they're going to zero in on this if we just keep arguing on the ice. And I'd always have to tell them, like, just settle down. And, I never had to manage him. I'm not implying that. The guy's a Norris Trophy winner 2-time, 1-1 without me. He's doing just fine. But no, we had a really good chemistry. I was super anal when it came to playing defense and being hyper-focused on not getting scored on. That's always how I've played. And Erik was more the riverboat gambler at times. But he when he wanted to, and you see it, maybe not so much this year, but when he wanted to, he's pretty effective on the back end playing defense. I think his main focus is obviously scoring goals in the offensive contributions. But yeah, we just had chemistry right from the get-go. I still remember in camp, we were skating at a practice rink right after I'd been traded, and I was getting reps with him playing 5-on-5. And there was a sequence in the offensive zone where I was just getting the puck constantly off a cycle and going to him. Boom, 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 always hitting my partner on the top. And eventually he would score. And that just carried into the season. And then we got to know each other. We hung out a lot off the ice. We talked a lot off the ice, built a lot of chemistry. And then it allowed us to be pretty successful as a tandem.
When you said arguing on the bench, Dregs, we've had him on our show. I thought our old captain with the Islanders, Pat Flatley, best board man I ever played with. And so he would yell at me all the time because like I would be in the way when he was digging the puck out, and I'd yell at him, well, if you could keep up, then I'd put the pass on your stick. And we'd be arguing on the bench, and eventually Al Arbor was our coach. He'd come over and go, you guys are giving me a freaking headache. Like, stop it. Because we'd be like this right at each other. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And, so
and that's,
I laugh when you say that.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's an element that most people don't see, right? And I feel like it'd be great if you could mic guys up, but there's so much stuff. There's a lot of offside stuff being said. It's probably best just kept there and quiet.
Yeah, you'd have to spend more time on social media than you already do. Let's wrap up talking about the Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sure. I know that's a series, obviously. I mean, you're watching it all, but you're paying close attention to that one. So Toronto's down 4-1 with 10 minutes, 19 seconds to go in that third period. I didn't think they had much chance because of respect for the Tampa Bay Lightning and all they've won. I mean, you couldn't have queued the comeback, but what do you make of how Toronto responded in that comeback, and what will this do for the Maple Leafs moving forward?
Well, I mean, I don't know how my take would differ from too many people here, but I've been watching this, focused on every single game. I think for me, that was a prime example of a game that Toronto had struggled with perhaps in the past, right? I mean, they didn't have the same depth. They didn't have the clutch gene. Like, you bring in guys like O'Reilly, even, and I'd go even further, like even with Shen, like those underlying numbers I saw today on Twitter, incredible. I knew he was effective and he's had some impactful sequences on the ice, but I didn't realize his numbers were that good. And then even McCabe, like, and a really interesting stat that I saw, I'm trying to find where I have it written down here. There was somewhere where a gentleman wrote it down online. Yeah. It was Kyle Cushman posted it on Twitter and I saw it. I thought it was interesting. And this is a credit to Dubas. I mean, Achari, Nyes, O'Reilly, Shen, all four of those guys not scored on in that game 4. I mean, those were all acquired players to help kind of get them over that playoff hump that they've been dealing with over the last couple of years, right? So I don't know. For me, it's simple. And you heard some of the guys talk about it at the intermission. Matthews steps up. Some of your key guys come up big when they need to.
Yeah.
But now you've got the back end that's bolstered. Even Giordano. I mean, he's been great. He's been a rock back there. He's contributing offensively. So there's been some nice adjustments. Kyle, he didn't have to reinvent the wheel with this group. I mean, they're finishing at the top of the pack the last couple of years. It's just adapting to the playoff game, which is different from the regular season. So they've done a good job there. And I guess now it's a more resilient group. I think goaltending for me is still sort of that outlier that kind of worries me a little bit, but I mean, other teams are dealing with that too. I think for me, getting more depth on the back end has been a huge significant change for that group. And then adding players like Achari, O'Reilly, getting more depth scoring up front has been also a nice change. So they're finding ways to win even in games that they should probably be losing in.
Well, if they put it away in game 5, I can imagine everybody will calmly accept that and move on to the next series. Then.
Oh, and I already know, and I've been quiet, and all the Toronto trolls, which I love interacting with, by the way, I know they're all waiting in the weeds right now, And as soon as that game ends, my mentions are going to get crushed. So I'm looking forward to it. Bring it on. And but I am cheering on. I like Kyle. I've had discussions with Dubas. I love the group. I'm close with Jason Spezza. A lot of this whole thing is just online joking around. I am cheering on the group to a degree. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, look, Mark, you've got a problem now, right? And the problem is this. You were so good that, Ray, we're going to have to bring him back at some point in the future, right?
Anytime, guys. I'd love to.
He's got the energy. He's got the information.
Well, right in the middle of the next round, when things go sideways on Twitter, that's when you're coming back.
Even for a quick one. Hey,
so in other words, you need me to stir up a whole bunch of shit so that I can come back on here. Got it.
That's exactly right, brother. That's exactly right. Okay, Matt, thanks for doing this. You can follow Marc Methot, Marc Methot 3 on Twitter. Always engaging. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, guys.